When the GU family was on the verge of bankruptcy, the GU couple came to our doorstep seeking a marriage alliance. My father, heartbroken that I had loved Jet GU for 10 years, injected 10 billion to revive the GU family and married me off to them. On our wedding night, Jet GU blindfolded me with red silk and took me fiercely, again and again. A month later, I joyfully brought my pregnancy report to him, only to overhear him betting with friends at a bar. Guess what? Kira Sai has been with over a dozen men. Who do you think the father of her baby is? The friends burst into laughter. Young Master GU, I only did it 3 times. Surely it can't be mine. I think a Jiao was the wildest that night. He drove Kira Sai almost insane. I bet 100,000 it's his. Only then did I realize that the man who shared my bed on my wedding night wasn't Jet GU at all. It was his dozen or so brothers. I rushed in like a madwoman, demanding answers, but he just shrugged it off. Why the tears? If your family hadn't threatened to withdraw funding, forcing Ting Ting to leave, would I have done this to you? I'm telling you, the moment Ting Ting is willing to forgive me is the moment I'll let you go. Heartbroken, I asked for a divorce. But he threatened me with the video from that night and locked me in the basement. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. My buddies and I are still betting on who the bastard's father is. 8 months later, I died in childbirth in the basement, taking the unborn child with me. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to the day I begged my father for the dowry to secure the marriage alliance. This time, on my wedding day, Jet GU cried until his eyes turned red. Kira, actually Jet likes you very much too. If you could marry into the family, Jet would be really happy. I suddenly woke up with a start and saw the GU couple looking at me with sincere expressions. In a daze, I realized I had been reborn. Mrs. GU gently held my hand and said with a beaming smile, Auntie knows you've had a crush on Jet for 10 years. If our 2 families were to unite through marriage, my parents could only offer an awkward smile. They all knew too well. The GU family's proposal was merely because they were on the brink of bankruptcy and desperately needed my family's billion-dollar investment. But they also knew how hopelessly in love I was with Jet GU. Thinking that if I could marry him as I wished, it might not be so bad after all. But now, I wish for nothing more than his death. I snapped back to reality and interrupted her, saying, I don't want to marry Jet GU. As soon as these words left my mouth, all eyes turned toward me. It seems unexpected that I, who usually follow Jet GU around like a devoted puppy, would actually refuse this marriage. Mrs. GU looked at me in shock. Kira, did you have a fight with Jet? Auntie will scold him when we get back. I shook my head. No need. GU Ting Sen pondered for a moment. Is it because of Jiang Yanting? Seeing that I remained silent, he sighed. Jiang Yanting is just a financially disadvantaged student our family sponsors. Jet only showed her some kindness out of pity. Don't worry, Uncle will have Jiang Yanting sent away as soon as we get home. She won't appear in front of Jet again. In my past life, he said the same thing. But it only earned me Jet Gu's resentment. He believed it was me who forced Jiang Yanting to leave. That's why, on the first night of our marriage, Jet GU brought over a dozen of his friends and tormented me the entire night. After I found out, he went so far as to lock me in the basement, forcing me to bear a child just to gamble on whose it might be. When my parents sensed something was wrong and came looking for me, Jet GU shamelessly showed them the video of that night's torment, saying with a face full of resentment, This is the fine daughter you raised. She was secretly involved with so many men behind my back. Disgusting. After watching the video, my parents were heartbroken and both fell seriously ill. Not only did Jet GU show no remorse, but he also brought Jiang Yanting before me, sneering as he said, Once your parents die, I'll take over the Psy group and give it to Ting Ting as an apology. My heart turned to ashes, and I died in childbirth. Recalling this, I trembled with rage and blurted out, Jet GU isn't worthy of me marrying him. Hearing this, GU Tingsen's expression darkened. Although the GU family is struggling now, if the Psy family is willing to invest, I'm certain the Psy family won't lose out. What he said was true. In my previous life, after my parents injected billions to save the GU family, their business thrived more and more. The Psy family did nothing yet effortlessly earned hundreds of millions in profits. Right now, I won't let money slip through my fingers either, I said coldly. I will marry into the GU family, but not Jet GU. It's Huichuan GU. The air suddenly fell silent for a few seconds. Gu Tingsen abruptly stood up. You mean, Hui Chuan? His legs are paralyzed. He can't even stand up. Are you joking? Dad also hurriedly tried to dissuade me. Kira, don't be reckless. I gently patted the back of my father's hand, signaling him not to panic, although Gu Huichuan is Jet Gu's uncle. He is only 4 years older than him. We grew up together and could be considered childhood sweethearts, but later, a car accident left him unable to stand again, and he gradually faded from my sight, too. In my previous life, when I was imprisoned in the basement by Jet Gu, he was the first to find me. He kept shouting, "Don't be afraid," over and over, pounding on the door repeatedly. I clearly saw that his legs weren't paralyzed at all. Later, Jet Gu arrived, and a group of people beat him half to death. I remember Jet Gu saying viciously, "Uncle, when I hired someone to hit you with a car before, why didn't it kill you? You wanted to compete with my dad for business back then. And now you're trying to steal my woman. Why are you so despicable?" Gu Huichuan not only didn't get angry, but also knelt down before him, saying, "Let Kira go, and I'll do anything you ask." Jet Gu sneered, slamming his head against the wall with a series of dull thuds. I will never forget the words Gu Huichuan said. "Kira, I've been searching for you for so long, so how could choosing Gu Huichuan ever be considered reckless? On the contrary, Jet Gu, I must make him pay the price." Gathering my thoughts, I turned to the Gu couple and said, "I've made up my mind. I will marry Gu Huichuan." Seeing my firm stance, everyone stopped trying to persuade me and nodded in agreement. After making this decision, I felt a sense of relief and decided to go find Gu Huichuan at his bar, but at the bar entrance, I saw Jet Gu and Jiang Yanting. Jet Gu noticed me, and his cheerful expression instantly turned impatient. "Kira-sai, why are you so annoying? Wherever I go, you follow." His buddies behind him burst into laughter. "I told you she'd show up tonight. I bet if we told her to lick young Master Gu's shoes, she'd drop to her knees right away." Upon hearing this, Jet Gu flashed a wicked smile, giving me a meaningful look as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. A wave of disgust surged within me, and I coldly stepped around him. "Move." Jet Gu froze for a moment before snapping back to reality and grabbing my arm. "Kira-sai, I already know about you using the investment as leverage to force a marriage alliance. What kind of act are you putting on now? Did you really think playing hard to get would make me spare you a second glance?" I gave him a faint glance and spoke the truth. "I have no intention of forming a marriage alliance with you." Jet Gu fell silent for a moment before suddenly letting out a mocking sneer. "No intention? Gu Corporation has already received a 10 billion investment from your father, and you still say there's no intention. Do you have any idea how cheap you look? Desperately begging me to marry you like this." I nodded. "I know, which is why I won't marry you. Listen carefully to what I'm saying again." Jet Gu froze in place until Jiang Yanting spoke up quietly beside them. "Brother Jet, I think Kira-sai doesn't want to see me. If you don't marry her, the Gu family will. Forget it, I'll leave now." Jet Gu abruptly let go of my hand, turned around, and pulled her into his embrace. "What does she even matter? Even if she gets her wish and marries me, I still won't love her." "Ting Ting, be good. We'll go take our wedding photos tomorrow. In my heart, you're the only one I consider my wife." The onlookers immediately started whistling and calling out sister-in-law to Jiang Yanting. Jet Gu shot me a smug glance, as if waiting for my reaction. He used to love seeing me embarrassed, but now, I felt nothing. "Marry whoever you want, I couldn't care less." Just as I was about to leave, Jiang Yanting blocked my path. "Kira-sai, stop pretending." The news about the marriage alliance between the Sai and Gu families was already reported by the media this afternoon. I can overlook the incident where you hired thugs to humiliate me, but I beg you, please treat Jet Gu well from now on. Speaking of the thugs incident, it was actually orchestrated by Jiang Yanting herself, a ploy to frame me and play the victim. It wasn't like I hadn't tried to prove my innocence, but Jet Gu simply refused to believe me. Now, I can't be bothered to explain either. Upon hearing this, Jet Gu's face darkened. Why beg her? A woman who stops at nothing to achieve her goals can't possibly compare to you. As he spoke, he warned me, "Marrying you was just a transaction of interests. If I find out you've bullied Ting Ting again, I won't let you off." Before he could finish, I looked up and cut him off. "Fine, got it. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving." With that, I turned and walked into the bar without looking back. What sister-in-law? In a few days, Jet Gu will have to respectfully call me auntie. Entering the bar, I headed straight for the private room at the very back. Pushing the door open, I saw Gu Huichuan sitting in a wheelchair. He turned his back to me. "Why didn't you choose Jet?" Without much thought, I leaned down and kissed his lips. "Don't you want to marry me?" 3. His Adam's apple bobbed, and after a moment, he whispered, "I do." The next day, Mrs. Gu sent someone to pick me up and take me to the Gu family villa. She said the Gu family brides have been wearing the same wedding dress for years and asked me to get measured. The butler carefully took out the wedding dress from the rosewood cabinet, his eyes filled with joy. "If second master Gu sees you in this dress, he won't be able to take his eyes off you." "What did you just say?" The sudden voice made my heart skip a beat. Jet Gu appeared at the stairway at some point, with Jiang Yanting following behind him, looking at me with a smug expression. The butler was about to speak when I cut in first, saying, "It's nothing." Jet Gu stared at me for several seconds before letting out a cold laugh. "Don't think that just because you're about to marry me, you can act like the young mistress of the house." As he spoke, he snatched the wedding dress from my hands. "Let Ting Ting wear this dress first, then you can have it." The butler's face turned pale. "Young master, this is the wedding dress passed down by the Gu family. It has always been reserved only for brides of the Gu family." Jiang Yanting suddenly burst into tears. As expected, Kira Sai has her ways. "The moment you arrived, even a servant dares to speak to me like this." As soon as the words fell, Jet Gu pointed at the butler and scolded angrily, "You dare disobey my orders? Measure Ting Ting's size first." I took a deep breath. No, originally, the wedding date between Gu Huichuan and me was already tight. How could we have time to deal with their nonsense now? As I spoke, I reached out to take back the wedding dress. But before my hand could even touch it, Jiang Yanting suddenly let out a sharp scream, stumbled backward, and fell straight down the stairs. Jiang Yanting lay at the bottom of the stairs, blood seeping from her forehead. Her face turned deathly pale, and with trembling fingers, she pointed at me. "You, why did you push me?" Seeing this, Jet Gu immediately rushed down, picked her up, and ran out without looking back. Ting Ting, such clumsy performances were nothing new for Jiang Yanting. Yet, every single time, Jet Gu believed her. I sighed and was about to leave when my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Gu Huichuan, saying he was waiting for me at the usual place. My mood instantly brightened, and my steps became noticeably lighter, but just as I stepped out of the Gu family villa's front gate, I was abruptly pulled into a car by Jet Gu, who had turned back. I frowned. "What are you doing?" I struggled to get out of the car, but he held me down firmly. "Ting Ting is bleeding. You need to go and give her a blood transfusion." "Are you insane?" I exclaimed. "That little injury would heal before we even reach the hospital." "Let me out of the car." Seeing me take out my phone to make a call, he snatched it away and threw it out the window. "Kira Sai, you've already gotten your wish by marrying me. Why are you still treating Ting Ting like this?" As the car was about to start moving, I shouted, "Jet Gu, I faint at the sight of blood and I'm anemic. A transfusion could kill me." But Jet Gu scoffed, "Stop pretending. Your act doesn't work on me." Soon, we arrived at the Gu family's private hospital. Jet Gu dragged me straight to the blood transfusion room and said to the nurse, "Hurry up and draw as much as Ting Ting needs." The moment the first needle went in, my entire body trembled, and my consciousness began to blur. I don't know how much time passed, but I found myself lying weakly on the ground, too feeble to move. When I tried to call for a doctor, I realized I was completely alone in the transfusion room. It turned out Jet Gu had already taken all the medical staff to care for Jiang Yanting. Just when I thought I was about to die, I suddenly felt a pair of strong arms lifting me up. "Don't sleep, Kira Sai, don't sleep." When I woke up, I saw Gu Huichuan, his eyes red. "I came too late." With those words, he took out an exquisite diamond ring and slipped it onto my ring finger. "Kira, marry me." Only then did I realize that he had planned to propose to me at our usual spot this afternoon. He said the proper ceremony must be observed. I nodded in agreement. The next second, he made a phone call. "Move the wedding to tonight." I was slightly startled, but the wedding dress is in Jiang Yanting's hands. Gu Huichuan chuckled softly, his eyes filled with adoration. it's all right. I've already prepared one for you. That night, I appeared at the hotel wearing a one-of-a-kind wedding dress. Jet Ji hurried over, his face full of impatience. All I asked was for you to donate some blood. And you're playing games with me like this. You're just jealous that I'm the one by Ting Ting's side, aren't you? Now that I'm back, are you happy? As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Huichuan's voice came from behind him. Jet, is that any way to greet your aunt? For Jet Gu's eyes widened instantly. What aunt? Ji Huichuan stepped past him, pushing the wheelchair straight to my side. Tonight is my and Kira's wedding. Didn't you know? I looked up and smiled, I told him. But he didn't believe me. Jet Ji froze in shock. How is this possible? My parents went to the Sai family compound to arrange a marriage for me. The one you're supposed to marry is clearly me. The butler spoke quietly. Young master, the arranged marriage has always been for the second master. Jet Ji clearly still didn't believe the butler's words. He straightened his suit and, feigning composure, grabbed my hand. Kira Sai, stop playing these childish tricks. Let's hurry through the ceremony. Ting Ting is waiting for me. I instinctively shook off his hand, but he just sneered. Though tonight is our wedding night, I won't be coming back to stay with you. I promised Ting Ting I'd be with her. So, don't waste my time. In my past life, he said the same thing. But back then, I naively believed that once we got married, he might gradually come to accept me. So after the wedding, I tried every possible way to make him stay. Seeing this, Ji Ting Sen secretly arranged for someone to send Jiang Yanting abroad overnight. After learning about it, he pretended not to care on the surface. But on our wedding night, he covered my eyes with red silk and handed me over to more than a dozen of his brothers. Now, looking at him, I feel nothing but disgust. Noticing the situation, Ji Huichuan shielded me behind him and said coldly, Jet, out of respect for you being my nephew, I won't argue with you, but please have some self-respect. He was about to say something more when the butler handed over the invitation. Young master, this invitation has been in your room for a while, but you never went back to check it. Only then did he carefully read the contents of the invitation. A few seconds later, his hands began to tremble slightly, and a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. He immediately demanded, Ji Huichuan, are you in on this act with her? Ji Huichuan replied calmly, after tonight, she will be my wife, Jet. It's time you faced reality. Jet Ji suddenly laughed, a hint of mockery in his smile. Kira Sai, you've been fawning over me for 10 years, how could you possibly be willing to marry someone else, and a paralyzed man at that? I retorted without hesitation, you're wrong, in my eyes, he's far better than you. Instantly enraged, he grabbed my wrist and tried to drag me out. Seeing this, Ji Huichuan grew anxious and was about to rise from his wheelchair. I quickly broke free from Jet Ji. Gently placing both hands on Ji Huichuan's shoulders, I knew he was pretending, but I also guessed there was a reason for his feigned paralysis. I didn't want him to expose himself for my sake so soon. Turning my head toward the banquet hall entrance, I said, the guests have already started arriving. Jet Ji, don't embarrass the Ji family. With that, I pushed Ji Huichuan and walked away. Kira Sai, Jet Ji roared behind me, if you turn back now and stop this charade, I can pretend nothing happened. But if you don't turn back, once my parents arrive, I will definitely break off the engagement with you. I'll make you the laughingstock of the entire city. I turned a deaf ear and kept walking forward. Anyway, the one who'll make a fool of themselves tonight definitely won't be me. After leaving Jet Gu's sight, Ji Huichuan whispered to me, did you know my leg was fine all along? Yes, I replied softly, but I also know you had your reasons. You can tell me when you're ready. The wedding officially began as my father led me slowly down the red carpet. Since it was a hastily arranged wedding, the Ji couple had just rushed back from another city. Jet Ji breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing their arrival, then stepped onto the stage in one stride. All the guests' eyes turned toward him in unison. He straightened his sleeves and said with a face full of sarcasm, thank you all for coming tonight, but unfortunately, our Ji family will absolutely never allow such a malicious and scheming woman to marry in. I now declare that I am breaking off my engagement with Kira Sai. As soon as these words were spoken, the guests below the stage erupted in chaos. He's breaking off the engagement. What is he doing? Can he actually decide this matter? Jet Ji glanced around, his gaze finally settling on the Ji couple. Dad, Mom, The one I truly love is Tingting, although the Sai family helped us. I can't go against my heart. I'll repay the money I owe them in the future. I watched Jet Gu on stage with cold eyes, beginning to feel embarrassed for him, not to mention that tonight's groom isn't him. Just consider how my family generously spent billions to save the Gu family. And all he has to say is a casual "I'll pay it back later." Doesn't he realize how ridiculous that sounds? And to think he had the audacity to humiliate me in front of so many people for Jiang Yanting. He must have a death wish. My father came to his senses, his face instantly turning ashen. What does the Gu family mean by this? Jet Gu not only showed no fear but also turned to my father and said coldly, "Aren't you ashamed of threatening the Gu family with investment just to force Kira Sai to marry me? I was going to give Kira Sai another chance. But she took a chicken feather as a command arrow." Utterly ungrateful. As he spoke, he glanced at Jiu Huichuan on the side of the stage. "Uncle, at your age, still playing such childish games with Kira Sai. How embarrassing." The Jiu couple turned pale with fright and hurried onto the stage to pull him back. "Jet, shut up. Get off the stage now." Just then, a sharp female voice came from outside the door. Jiang Yanting rushed in and knelt directly in front of me, tears welling up in her eyes as she pleaded, "Kira Sai, Jet and I are truly in love. I beg you, don't resort to such underhanded tactics to take him away, please." I looked at her and couldn't help but find it laughable. If they don't come to cause trouble, after tonight, they can do whatever they want. But now that they've made such a scene, it's not looking good. Jet Gu, seeing Jiang Yanting in this state, was filled with heartache. He pointed at me and said arrogantly, "You can marry me if you want, but you must accept Tingting living with us. I have to spend at least 5 days a week at her place. If Tingting has children in the future, they must share everything equally with your children." As soon as these words were spoken, the room erupted in uproar, with the elders shouting, "This is absurd." I felt my father's grip on my hand tighten. He must have finally understood why I didn't choose Jet Gu. I looked at Jet Gu and retorted, "How can you be so certain that the person I'm marrying is you?" As soon as the words left my mouth, Jiu Huichuan wheeled himself onto the stage in his wheelchair. He clapped his hands, and the next second, the large screen began displaying the hastily taken wedding photos of him and me, several of which showed us passionately kissing. The guests below the stage whispered among themselves, "Actually, Kira Sai and Jiu Huichuan make quite a good match. Who would have thought?" She chased Jet Gu for 10 years. And now Jet Gu has to call her aunt. Jet Gu pointed at the person speaking in the audience and shouted, "What aunt? Haven't I made it clear enough? They are just..." Before he could finish, Mrs. Gu panicked and quickly covered his mouth. "Jet, you want to marry Jiang Yanting, right? I have no objections. Now get out of here." Hearing this, Jiang Yanting smiled triumphantly. Jet Gu struggled to continue speaking, but the moment he looked up, he clearly saw the large screen behind him. He froze instantly, as if finally realizing that no one had been lying. Pointing at the wedding photos, his face flushed red, and he stammered, "Kira Sai, when did you betray me? How could you cheat on me?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. "Stop saying things that could be misunderstood. We were never together in the first place, so how can you accuse me of betrayal?" Jet Gu's face was filled with disbelief before he grabbed Jiu Huichuan by the collar and roared, "You fought my dad for money back then. Now you're fighting me for a woman. How despicable can you be?" At this point, Jiu Tingsen's pupils trembled with shock, and he slapped Jet across the face. "You unfilial son. What nonsense are you spouting? Your uncle has never taken anything from me. And from the very beginning, the person Kira Sai was going to marry was your uncle." Jet Gu stood frozen in place, momentarily speechless. Jiu Huichuan glared at him coldly, apologized to Kira Sai, apologized to the Sai family. 6. The crowd below also began pointing at Jet Gu and murmuring, "This young master of the Gu family is too arrogant, isn't he?" Yes. The Sai family saved the Gu family, and yet he dares to treat Miss Kira Sai like this. Isn't he afraid the Sai family might change their mind? Upon hearing these words, Jiu Tingsen quickly explained to my father, "Kira will be my sister-in-law from now on. I definitely won't allow Jet to be so rude. Tonight was due to our lack of discipline. In the future, the Jiu family's business will surely increase the Sai family's share by an additional 20%. My father's face was cold. his gaze sharp as a knife, fixed on Jet Ji-yu. Seeing this, Ji-yu Ting-sen grabbed Jet Ji-yu by the shoulder and forced him to his knees. "You unfilial son, apologize to your aunt now." At that moment, Jiang Yanting suddenly fell to her knees before me, tears streaming down her face like pear blossoms in the rain. "What does this have to do with Jet? It's all because Kira Sai didn't explain things clearly to him. That's why he misunderstood. Brother Jet has never suffered any grievances since childhood. How could he kneel before a woman? I'll apologize on his behalf." Before her words had even settled, Madame Ji-yu kicked her to the ground. "Mrs. Ji-yu pointed at her furiously and said, if it weren't for you, this vile woman, Kira Sai would be my daughter-in-law now. It's all your fault. You seduced my son and made him lose his senses. Get out of here." Jiang Yanting lay on the ground, looking at Jet Ji-yu in pain, only to find him staring blankly at me, not even glancing at her. Panicked, she crawled on all fours to Jet Ji-yu, clutching the hem of his clothes. "It's okay, brother Jet, I'll marry you. I won't betray you like Kira Sai did." Jet Ji-yu violently shook off her hand. "No, how could Kira Sai possibly betray me?" Jiang Yanting tried to step forward again but was kicked once more by Mrs. Ji-yu. "Starting today, the Ji-yu family won't give you a single cent, and I'll make sure the entire industry knows exactly what kind of person you are." Jiang Yanting turned pale with fright and quickly hid in Jet Gu's arms, sobbing, "I won't leave brother Jet, never ever." But Jet Ji-yu pushed her away abruptly. "Yanting, go get the Ji-yu family's wedding gown back. Kira Sai must have chosen that cripple because she lost the gown." Madame Gu's face instantly turned ashen. "That was our Ji-yu family heirloom passed down from our ancestors. How dare you even mention it?" Ji-yu Ting-sen let out a long sigh and waved his hand to the people behind him. "Take him back and make him reflect on his actions." Jet Ji-yu didn't even have the strength to resist, only muttering to himself, "How could this happen?" After he was taken away, the wedding ceremony continued as planned. I held Ji-yu Huichuan's hand and went through all the procedures step by step. I heard him whisper in my ear, "I've liked you since 10 years ago." When we returned to the Ji-yu family villa, Jet Ji-yu was sitting at the entrance. Upon seeing us, he immediately dropped his previous wild demeanor and obediently called out, "Auntie, 7. I responded expressionlessly with an and walked straight inside. Ji-yu Ting-sen visibly relaxed when he saw this scene. He quickly walked over to me and said in a hushed voice, "Kira, Huichuan, he's been in a terrible state since the incident. He only seemed slightly better tonight. I hope you can help comfort him properly in the future. I only have this one younger brother. I don't want to see him continue like this." Back in the room, after some thought, I finally spoke up. "Huichuan, your elder brother doesn't seem to be guarding against you as outsiders say. He appears to genuinely care about you." Ji-yu Huichuan remained silent for a moment before looking at me and saying, "I faked paralysis because I suspect the person who hit me was Jet Ji-yu. I didn't tell you earlier because I was worried you might still have feelings for him." I recalled what Jet Ji-yu had said in my previous life and silently nodded. At that moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. Jet Ji-yu walked in carrying 2 glasses of wine, a strange smile on his face. "Auntie, I've come to apologize." "No need," I said coldly without hesitation. "Leave us alone and don't disturb us." He burst into laughter. "I called you auntie once, and you really think you're my elder now? Kira Sai, how come I never noticed you were this desperate before? Even a cripple isn't safe from you. Get out," Ji-yu Huichuan warned. Jet Ji-yu turned to look at Ji-yu Huichuan, laughing even more arrogantly. "Uncle, the Ji-yu family will be mine from now on. Shouldn't it be you, the useless one, who gets out?" With that, he suddenly stepped forward, gripping my chin forcefully. "Only I can dump others. No one dumps me, including you." His strength was overwhelming, and he pinned me against the table. Seeing this, Ji-yu Huichuan immediately rushed over, yanking him back violently. Jet Ji-yu crashed heavily to the ground, only to be immediately run over by Ji-yu Huichuan's wheelchair, letting out a piercing scream. Ji-yu Huichuan looked down at him condescendingly. "If you dare lay a finger on my wife, I'll kill you." Jet Ji-yu got up from the ground and spat out some water. What can a cripple do? Tonight, I'm going to have my way with that crazy woman Kira Sai right in front of you. Let's see what you can do about it." He raised his foot to kick Ji-yu Huichuan, but to his surprise, Ji-yu suddenly stood up, grabbed his leg, and twisted it backward. Jet Jiyu fell heavily to the ground again with a dull thud. He saw Jiyu Huichuan standing upright, his face deathly pale, his voice trembling. How can you stand up? This is impossible. Just then, Jiyu Huichuan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the message and, without a word, picked me up and carried me outside, as we passed by Jet Jiyu. His voice carried a chilling coldness. Your time is up. Carried by Jiyu Huichuan, I arrived in the living room where Jiyu Tingsen and Madame Jiyu were descending the stairs in their pajamas, asking, what's going on? But when they saw Jiyu Huichuan standing, their expressions instantly turned to overwhelming joy. Jiyu Tingsen looked at me in disbelief. Kira, you're truly a blessing to our Jiyu family. The moment you arrived, Huichuan got better. Jiyu Huichuan, however, remained silent. His icy gaze fixed on the staircase. Jiyu Tingsen sensed something was wrong and whispered to me. What happened? I recounted everything that had just occurred in detail. Jiyu Tingsen, upon hearing this, trembled with rage. That beast, I'll kill him today. At that moment, a man in a black suit hurried over and handed a document folder to Jiyu Huichuan. Jiyu Huichuan opened the folder, which contained photocopies of chat records and a USB drive. Jet Gu's face turned deathly pale the moment he saw those items. He rushed down the stairs in a frenzy, snatching the copies and tearing them apart wildly. You're slandering me, framing me, then driving me out so you can seize the Jiyu family's fortune, aren't you? Jiyu Huichuan let out a cold laugh and directly inserted the USB drive into the computer. Soon, Jet Gu's voice came through the speakers loud and clear. Hit him hard. I want Jiyu Huichuan either dead or crippled. That way he won't be able to compete with my dad for the inheritance, and everything will be mine in the future. Jiyu Tingsen's face turned ashen upon hearing this. He strode step by step toward Jet Jiyu, raising his hand and delivering a resounding slap. So it was you, how dare you? Huichuan is my own brother. The Jiyu family's assets rightfully include his share. I never once thought he was competing with me for them. Moreover, he's your uncle. You beast, how could you bring yourself to do such a thing? With every word he spoke, he delivered a harsh slap. Jet Gu's face quickly swelled up like a pig's head, though her heart ached for him. Madame Jiyu could only turn her head away at this moment, tears streaming uncontrollably. You've really gone too far this time. Only then did Jiyu Huichuan speak up. Actually, I wasn't completely unconscious that day. I clearly saw the Jiyu family emblem on the tires of the car that hit me. So I'm absolutely certain it was done by someone from the Jiyu family. I just didn't know exactly who it was, which is why I pretended to be paralyzed. To make the killer let their guard down. I didn't want to believe it either. But later, all the evidence pointed straight to Jet Jiyu. Upon hearing this, Jiyu Tingsen punched Jet Jiyu in the face, knocking him to the ground. 8. At that moment, Jiang Yanting pushed the door open and walked in, holding her wedding dress. Seeing the mess on the floor and Jet Jiyu lying face down, she let out a scream and rushed over frantically. What are you doing? She threw herself beside Jet Jiyu, took in his blooded face, and turned to shout at Jiyu Tingsen. Uncle, how could you do this? He's your son, the only heir of the Jiyu family. Jiyu Tingsen stood still, letting out a bitter, cold laugh. Heir, is he worthy? He slumped onto the sofa with a thud. He's not my biological son at all. Mrs. Jiyu could no longer hold back, covering her face as she burst into tears. He's the child of an old friend. At that time, he was only a few months old. We couldn't bear to see him with no one to rely on, and since I couldn't conceive, we took him in and raised him. I looked coldly at Jet Jiyu, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my lips. So it was all fake. No wonder you're so obsessed with what you can't have. No, that's not true. Jet Jiyu shook his head frantically. You're lying to me. You must be lying. Jiang Yanting stood frozen in place. Even if we're not blood related, all these years of feelings were real. She grabbed Jiyu Tingsen's sleeve. Uncle, please, for the sake of having lived together for over 20 years, don't drive him away. Okay, get away. Jet Jiyu suddenly erupted, shoving Jiang Yanting aside. It's all because of you. If it weren't for your meddling back then, how could Kira Sai and I have ended up like this? Get out. Get as far away as you can. Jiang Yanting staggered back 2 steps, biting her lip hard. Then what about our child? Jet Gu's movements suddenly froze. The next second, he lunged at Jiang Yanting, pinned her down, and began relentlessly punching her abdomen. "It's all your fault," he roared between blows. I thought I didn't love Kira Sai. But I was wrong. Only when I saw her about to marry someone else did I realize. I can't live without her. It's all because of you. You made me lose Kira Sai. Jiang Yanting pleaded in agony, but Jet Jiu seemed deaf to her cries, his fists striking harder. Soon, bright red blood began to spread beneath Jiang Yanting. Jet Jiu stared at the glaring pool of blood before slowly releasing his grip. "It's over. It's fine now. Get out of here," he snapped. Everyone was stunned by his actions, taking a long moment to realize they should call the police. The police officer arrived and immediately escorted Jet Jiu into the police car. Jiu Tingsen took a deep breath and handed the USB drive to the officer. "Please investigate the Huaichuan car accident as well." After the police took Jet Jiu away, Jiu Tingsen slumped into his chair and said to Jiu Huaichuan, "Actually, I could tell long ago that Jet Jiu was useless. All these years, I've been considering handing the company over to you." He gave a bitter laugh. "It's just as well now. Since I couldn't teach him properly, let the law teach him instead." Several months later, news arrived. Jet Jiu was sentenced to 10 years for attempted murder and intentional assault. After the miscarriage, Jiang Yanting developed mental health issues and was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Thanks to my father's 10 billion investment, the Jiu family not only revived from the brink of collapse but also achieved new glory. Our Sai family naturally reaped substantial benefits as well. I suddenly realized that making mistakes doesn't matter. What's important is choosing again. That concludes the first story. Stay tuned. The next one is even more exciting. I was reborn back to the second year of my marriage, when my husband brought home his adopted son, Xiao Hao. Along with him came his first love, Wang Yanan. Before I could even protest, he said to me, "Your grandfather was a landlord, and your family background is problematic. Back then, I married you despite the pressure. Now, consider this as repaying a favor to me." He used my salary to take her to the doctor, forgetting that I too was coughing up blood at night due to pneumonia. Without even batting an eye, he bought the vintage bicycle I'd been talking about for 2 years, only for Wang Yanan and her child to ride it. I didn't say a word. I just quit my job, asked a judge I knew to draft divorce papers, and leased a plot of land in the suburbs to start a nursery. What are men worth, in this second life of mine? All I want is to make money. "Lily, come quick and see who's in the house." Just off my shift at the processing plant, I dragged my exhausted body home when my husband pulled me into the living room. "Auntie Shu, how missed you so much." The child I've been sponsoring for 2 years threw himself into my arms, affectionately nuzzling my face. Today was supposed to be a joyous day celebrating Hao officially becoming our son, but now, all I feel is a chill running down my spine. Pushing Hao aside, I turn to the woman sitting at the table and demand, "Who is she?" Truth be told, I already know who that woman is. In my past life, she was a constant thorn in my side for decades. Impossible to forget even if I tried. She is Hao's mother. Seeing Wang Yanan's awkward demeanor at the dining table, Liao Jie gave an embarrassed smile, stepped forward, and placed a hand on her shoulder. Intimate and natural, I sneered inwardly but feigned confusion on my face. "But didn't you say 2 years ago that Xiaohao was an orphan? How did a mother suddenly appear out of thin air?" No sooner had the words been spoken than Wang Yanan stood up. "It's my fault. Back then, I had no choice. I couldn't take care of Hao, so I had to leave him at the orphanage gate. After finally saving up some money, I spent it all on my illness." Liao Jie grew anxious, frowning as he gently helped her sit back down. "Lily, you have no idea how much she's suffered all these years. Let's take her in for now, at least until she finds a job." He was handsome with a good figure, standing beside Wang Yanan, his shadow falling on her shoulder, looking every bit like a loving couple. Watching them, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. In my previous life, it was just like this. She kept staying and eventually never left. Hao is her son after all, so naturally he favored her even more. After starting work, he even bought a small Western-style house and moved Wang Yanan and my husband in to live there. Their social media was often filled with photos of their happy family of 3, while I didn't even have a child and couldn't get a divorce, because Liao Jie was afraid that if they divorced and he got together with Wang Yanan, people would point fingers at them, afraid others would call her a homewrecker if they didn't divorce. People would just assume their good relationship was because of their adopted son, How, as the bond. When others asked why I never appeared in photos, he would say, "She's introverted, doesn't like taking pictures or going out," and so, the infamous reputation of being jealous and petty was pinned on me for life. Now, as I listen to Liao Jie's defense, I simply ask, "Husband, do you really not know this Miss Wang?" Liao Jie nods decisively. But when I pull out a photo of them together from their youth from under the bed, he suddenly becomes furious out of embarrassment. "Shu Lily, you went through my things. How despicable." "You're right, considering your background, it's no surprise your character is so poor. I must have been blind." After having his shame exposed, Liao Jie started spouting incoherent insults. He said my background was bad because my grandfather used to be a landlord. After he was overthrown, my family collapsed and became an object of scorn for everyone around us. Liao Jie's parents were the most genuine farmers, with a clean family background. Originally, they didn't think much of me, but later, he must have heard the news of his first love getting married somewhere, which must have struck a nerve. He even threatened to take his own life to force his parents to agree to our marriage, even though many people gossiped behind our backs. On our wedding day, he still hosted several banquet tables. He said, "Lily, don't worry, your husband will make sure you have a grand occasion and will always protect you." But now, the one who promised to protect me is the one stabbing me in the heart, all because I exposed his lies. My heart is bleeding, yet I force a smile, pretending everything is fine. With Wang Yanan watching, I can only desperately cling to that ridiculous pride. "Shu Lily, speaking of the past," Liao Jie paused, as if remembering something, and looked up at me. "Back then, despite your poor background, I married you under pressure. Now, consider it as repaying a favor to me. Let Yanan stay." I couldn't help but laugh at these absurd words. We're husband and wife, family. Yet here he is bargaining favors with me. He didn't even call me wife anymore, just bluntly used "Shu Lily," all because he's afraid I might make things difficult for his first love. "Sure, you can stay then." I nodded and turned to leave, except there's no place for me in this home anymore. Liao Jie didn't follow me. Behind me, I even heard the sound of chairs being moved and dishes being arranged. "It's all right, let's eat first," he said to the mother and son with an air of nonchalance, even though I had already seen his true nature in my past life. Why can't I stop crying now? Perhaps it's because this body belongs to my younger self. Still deeply in love with Liao Jie, I had no money on me and couldn't stay at a hotel. The only place I could think of was my old home in the mountains, 30 kilometers away. Grandma was there, borrowing the moonlight. I gritted my teeth and walked through half the night. Finally returning to my old home at the crow of the rooster, it was clearly the middle of the night. Yet Grandma's house was still lit, and even more surprising, someone was sitting in the yard, lost in thought. Seeing my pitiful state, Grandma burst into tears. She said, "My dear Lily, that bastard Liao Jie is truly inhuman." I was still wearing the thin, dark blue factory work clothes, with yellow-black dust covering my nostrils and the corners of my mouth. Grandma was heartbroken. She boiled water for me to bathe and heated up a meal for me. Watching me wolf down my food, she couldn't stop sighing. "Grandma always said that boy wasn't good enough for you." Originally, with my high school diploma, I could have found a decent job at the department store, but Liao Jie's power plant was too far from me, and he found it inconvenient, so he got me a job at the nearby chemical plant instead. The air over there was foul, with stinky fumes constantly billowing from the big chimneys and dust everywhere. Every day, I ended up covered in grime. Yet for Liao Jie, in my past life, I actually endured such work for 30 years. Now, I hold Grandma to comfort her. "Don't worry, Grandma, soon I'll deal with both this person and this job." I only stayed in my hometown for a day before I had to return to the factory for work. Liao Jie didn't come to pick me up. It was my grandmother who drove the ox cart to take me down the mountain. When I left the village, many people in the village made sarcastic remarks. "Oh, married a good husband and still putting on airs here. What a spoiled young lady you are. Who do you think you are? Liao Jie is really unlucky to have ended up with a wife like you." Grandma turned around, patted my hand, and then lashed out at those people with a few whips. Get out, get out. How dare you filthy things come near my Lily." Several people cursed and grumbled, but they couldn't withstand the sting of Grandma's whip and ran off. "Lily, that Liao Jie is no good. He's always been disgusting. If you want a divorce, Grandma knows Judge Jong in the city. He can help you draft the divorce papers. Grandma was a young lady of high standing in her time. Though she now tends sheep in the countryside, the connections her family has built up over the generations are more than enough to help me out, overcome the immediate difficulties. She dropped me off at the entrance of the fertilizer factory, then wobbled away with the ox cart toward the city. I wiped my tears and turned to enter the factory. When I returned home from work in the evening, there were new bowls and chopsticks on the table. It was bought by Wang Yanan, and my husband kept praising her good taste. I'm tired of looking at these bowls and chopsticks at home. Fresh ones are better. He packed away the old bowls and chopsticks, stuffed them into a box, and moved it outside the door. Every day, scrap collectors passed by the door. And these old bowls and chopsticks were bought by me the year we got married. Right, this afternoon there was an old lady who came to the gate in an ox cart and started scolding. So I splashed a basin of foot-washing water on her. Ha ha ha, she was so funny. How bragged while swinging his legs on the chair. The moment I heard it, I didn't hesitate to slap him. Wah, Auntie Shu, the kid was terrified by me, covering his face as he stood up. Wang Yanan rushed over and hugged the child, tears streaming down her face in silent sorrow. Lily, don't panic. Liao Jie had intended to stop her, but was a second too late. He stood up regretfully to explain. Maybe it wasn't Grandma. I ignored Liao Jie, trying hard to stop my trembling body, and stared at Hao Hao as I asked, what was that Grandma wearing? Hao Hao timidly replied, just a black coat with holes in it. Hearing this, my heart ached so much that I burst into tears. Grandma really did come here. I can hardly imagine how she made it to the door, ready to stand up for me, only to be doused with cold water by this kid, splashed over. The night was so cold. How did she manage to go back wearing those drenched clothes? At this thought, my heart felt as if it were being torn apart, and I wanted to rush out, but Liao Jie held me back. Lily, don't worry. At this hour, Grandma must have already gone back. You still have work tomorrow. Calm down. He tried hard to stop me, and even that Wang Yanan joined in. Yeah, Lily, your grandma will be fine. Hearing this, I looked at her. This afternoon, when it was just you and your son at home. Why didn't you control your son then? Wang Yanan's face turned red as she bit her lip and remained silent. Who told that old lady to scold my mom? She deserved it. Hao Hao loudly retorted. Even Liao Jie stood on their side. Yeah, Lily, actually this matter is also your fault. If you hadn't gone back to complain to Grandma, Hao Hao wouldn't have. I directly shook off his hand. I rushed up to Hao Hao, grabbed his collar, and said word by word, I just want to ask you, in these past 2 years, haven't I brought you plenty of food every time I visited the orphanage? Your winter clothes, summer clothes, even the coat you're wearing right now, they were all bought with my salary. How dare you use my things, yet show not a shred of remorse toward my grandmother? Wang Yanan wiped her tears, tried to pry my hand open but couldn't, then pouted her lips again. I turned to look at her. Stop fucking pretending with me. Your son was as timid as a mouse in the orphanage, daring to splash water on an old person like that. Wasn't it you who taught me this? I know her intention was to deliberately have her son provoke me at the dinner table. Sure, I let go of her and, under Liao Jie's shocked gaze, flipped the entire dining table over. As you wish. Tonight no one will have it easy. Amid the sound of shattering dishes and utensils, food spilled everywhere, leaving the room in complete chaos. Get out, Shu Lily. Liao Jie was completely exasperated. We haven't even had dinner yet. What's gotten into you? The scalding soup splashed onto my arm, leaving a red, swollen patch. When he noticed, his gaze softened again. Lily, stop being so temperamental. Okay, he reached out to hug me as usual, but I dodged his embrace. Things have come to this point today, and I think it's time to speak up. Liao Jie, let's get a divorce. I don't want to be with you anymore. Liao Jie paused, not quite processing it. After all, in his view, marrying someone with his clean family background was supposed to be my privilege. Lily, I apologize for not picking you up at Grandma's house this morning. It was my fault. He took out a silver bracelet from his pocket and put it on my wrist. This was what he had promised during the new year. Back when he said, I'll save up to buy Lily a bracelet. Right now, I can only afford silver. From now on, buy Lily a gold bracelet. Now, As the bracelet sits heavily on my wrist, I feel unbearably uncomfortable, as if it might scorch through my skin. Tears welled up uncontrollably, and I quickly took off the bracelet, handing it back to him so I could free my hands to wipe my tears. "Didn't you hear me?" I choked back my voice, wanting to say it again, but a wave of discomfort hit my chest. I coughed twice and unexpectedly coughed up blood. "Lily." My head spun in waves of dizziness as he helped me lie down on the bed. "This pneumonia, why does it keep coming back?" He frowned as he skillfully handed me the spittoon and patted my hair. "Lily, I was wrong before." No sooner had he spoken than Xiao Hao's wails echoed through the living room. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" Liao Jie beside me dashed out instantly. The next morning when I woke up, there was medicine by the bedside along with a glass of water. The house was empty, and the living room remained in disarray. Liao Jie had also left me a note. He said that Wang Yanan needed to be hospitalized for treatment due to severe tinnitus. The textile factory where Yanan used to work was dirty and exhausting. Just take a look at her rough hands and weary expression, and you'll know how hard her life was. Not easy. Also, I didn't have enough money. So I came back to take your salary for these 2 months. Keep wearing that bracelet. I bought it for you as promised. I watched, unable to suppress a bitter smile. Every word was filled with concern for Wang Yanan, using my salary to pay for her treatment. I couldn't even bear to spend money treating my own lung disease, saving up just to live a slightly better life, and just like that, he took it all fresh and crisp to spend on someone else. Liao Jie. "Have you forgotten that I got this pneumonia from working at the chemical plant?" After recovering for a long while, I got up, tidied the living room, and then headed in the direction of the chemical plant. "It's already noon. I'm definitely going to get scolded by the team leader again, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to resign." After resigning, I went to the city again. When I returned home in the afternoon, I brought along that Judge Zhong. Liao Jie was cooking in the kitchen with Xiao Hao when he saw me return. The first thing he asked about wasn't my health. "Did you leave work early today?" He frowned. "What about the impact on your salary? This month and next, the family urgently needs money." I couldn't be bothered to respond, covering my mouth as I coughed. "Lily, I'm sorry. Are you feeling any better?" He came to his senses and helped me sit down. Only then did he notice Judge Zhong behind him. "Who is this?" he asked. Only after Judge Zhong conveyed my intention to divorce to her did he stand up, as if he had heard some outrageous joke. "This is impossible. Where does this idea of divorce come from? Besides, Lily and I have only been married for 2 years, and our relationship is just fine. What divorce?" Uncle Zhong looked at me, then asked him, "But this is your wife's wish. Don't you care at all?" Liao Jie froze, then quickly denied it the next second. "Stop talking nonsense. As long as I don't sign, no one can make us divorce." Uncle Zhong adjusted his glasses and said, "I'm here today to investigate, to check whether your marital relationship is harmonious, and to ask your workplace about each of you, ask about oneself, inquire with the neighbors about your recent situation. Anyway, if my investigation confirms that the facts are exactly as your wife described, you might want to consider signing." Uncle Zhong left, and Liao Jie looked at him as if he were sick. Not taking it seriously. "Lily, recently, you might need to come home quickly after work to cook. I have to take care of Yanan. Make the food lighter. The doctor said she can't eat anything spicy." Before he could finish, I responded calmly, "I quit my job." Liao Jie was very angry because the burden of the family now fell solely on his shoulders, but considering the current situation at home, he gritted his teeth and tried to comfort me. "Fine, I'll earn the money. It works out. You can cook and take care of Xiao Hao. He needs to go to school." I shook my head and looked up at him. "Figure out your own meals. I won't take care of Xiao Hao either, and I won't spend a single cent of your money." Liao Jie froze. "Then what are you going to do?" I said slowly. "I want to start a business. To make money. And then, leave you." Liao Jie suddenly laughed, then criticized, "You're engaging in speculation and sideline activities, neglecting your proper duties." I retorted, "Don't you know that many people along the southeastern coast are doing business now?" Seeing his stunned expression, I suddenly realized, yes, he didn't know. To him now, the city is vast, the provincial capital is distant and bustling, and beyond the provincial capital lies an unknown world. But I'm different. I have memories from decades later. Now the country is pushing for urban development, and there's a huge demand for landscaping. Those roadside areas and parks all need new plants transplanted, so, given my current capabilities, the way to make money is to lease a piece of land and start a nursery. After all, for years later, the provincial capital Kunming will host a grand world horticultural exposition, as long as I start now. If everything goes smoothly, by 1999, I can use the platform of the exposition to expand and strengthen the nursery. Liao Jie didn't have time to ponder my words. He was busy every day with work and taking care of Wang Yanan. Xiaohao's meals were entrusted to the hospital cafeteria. I went back to my hometown and explained the situation to my grandmother. She fully supported my decision to divorce. Upon hearing about my plans to start a business, she immediately sold all the family's cattle and sheep. She even gave away the farmland and the old family house to others. When all this money was added up, it turned out to be quite a substantial sum. Grandma shoved it all into my hands at once, scratching her head as she said, "Grandma can finally put down these burdens. From now on, whatever Lily wants to do, Grandma will help her do it." Grandma and I found a plot of land in the suburbs, since winter was approaching. The moment people heard I wanted to lease the land, they immediately agreed without hesitation. My grandmother and I spent some money to buy bricks and built a small house on that piece of land. For the next few years, all our daily necessities, food, clothing, shelter, and transportation, were taken care of there. Later, we went to buy some plastic sheeting and carried back many bamboo poles, each 3 to 4 meters long. These were what I planned to use for greenhouse seedling cultivation. The soil in the field has been tilled, and with a river nearby, irrigation won't be an issue. All these scattered tasks took us a month in total. Next comes the selection of seedling varieties. There are 2 methods available, using seeds or cuttings. Coincidentally, I had a classmate who worked at the municipal bureau during my school days. He was in charge of this very area, and I planned to ask that friend for some seeds and cuttings. Before that, as money was running low, I went back home, never expecting to witness that scene. On the day I returned home, it was unusually snowing. The room was filled with lively chatter. Sounding incredibly warm and cozy, it seems Wang Yanan has been discharged from the hospital. Pushing open the door against the wind and snow, the icy air dispersed the warmth inside. Wang Yanan was nestled in Liao Jie's arms, watching her son bounce around with a contented smile. And on her wrist was the very bracelet Liao Jie had given me. Before leaving home, I had placed the bracelet under my pillow. Somehow, it ended up on her wrist. Perhaps the bracelet was a bit too glaring. I rubbed my eyes dryly. Liao Jie immediately let go and stepped far away from Wang Yanan. Then, he came over and pinched my hand. "Lily, why did you take so long to come back? You must be freezing, right?" I ignored him, sidestepped past him, disregarding the disappointment on his face, and walked into the room. "Lily, you've been disappearing all month. What have you been up to?" He followed me in, closed the door behind him, and embraced me from behind. I put the rest of my money into an envelope, tucked it into my pocket, and then pushed him away. "What are you doing?" He clearly saw my movements, and his expression grew somewhat tense. "Lily, are you really going to leave me?" Liao Jie's voice trembled slightly. "Shoo Lily, is it really just for that so-called business plan of yours?" I shook my head. "Our relationship is already broken. I don't need you anymore, Liao Jie." With that, I walked out of the room, only to be grabbed by him outside. Emotional breakdown. He looked somewhat angry. "Shoo Lily, have you forgotten who it was that married you without caring about your background? What did you say back then? You promised to be with me for a lifetime." His tone intensified, startling Wang Yanan and her son. "Here we go again. How annoying." I frowned and broke free from his grip, rubbing my sore wrist as I looked up at him. "Yes, now I'm the one who's changed first. Is that okay? It's my fault for not knowing what's good for me. It's my lack of manners, I admit it all. So now, can you let this ill-mannered person leave?" As I spoke, I pulled open the door to the outside. Liao Jie gritted his teeth and called out to stop me again. This time, his tone had calmed down. "Before you leave, explain the burns on Xiaohao's arm first." He lifted Xiaohao's wrist, pulled off the bandage to show me. There was a patch of burns on it. "Shoo Lily, you knew perfectly well I didn't have time to take care of Xiaohao. Why didn't you set up the heating charcoal for him? In the winters of those years, the only way to keep warm at school was to bring your own pre-burned coal. It was carried in discarded iron cans as wide as a palm." with wire handles threaded through both sides to carry it to school. During class, you could place that simple little stove under your legs to stay warm, and Xiao Hao, because there was no one at home to help him, had to handle this little stove himself. Which was how he burned his arm. But I frowned helplessly and looked at him. Your first love's son got hurt. What does that have to do with me? Liao Jie sneered and tightened his grip on my hand again. Of course it does. You're his adoptive mother. His injury is your responsibility. I was so angry I laughed. Then what about you, the adoptive father? Your mind wasn't on your adopted son. Don't you bear any responsibility? And you, the birth mother? I turned to look at Wang Yanan. He's your biological son. Did your ear surgery sever your hands? Did it mute your mouth? Couldn't you? Have you asked how your own son is doing? Oh, I see. I sneered at her. All your thoughts are on seducing my husband. As for your son, you've already abandoned him once. Do you even care about abandoning him a second time? My words left both mother and son with pale faces. Clearly, Xiao Hao silently glanced at his mother, and an inevitable rift emerged between them. Shu Lily. Don't interrupt. Liao Jie pulled my attention back. Today, either you give an explanation before leaving, or you leave all the money in your pocket for Xiao Hao as medical expenses. I frowned. I still needed this money for buying seedlings and treating people to meals. You can't bear to lose money, can you? Liao Jie let out a sigh of relief and whispered in my ear with a hint of madness. If you don't compensate, you're not allowed to leave. Stay by my side. I looked up at him. And his current demeanor somewhat resembled the stance he once had when he insisted on marrying no one but me. Could it be that Liao Jie would also have moments of reluctance to let me go? Unfortunately, the current me only wants to leave as soon as possible and focus on my own affairs. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and Wang Yanan, who had been watching from the side, hurried to open it. Liao Jiehou seemed to have a premonition as he shouted, "Yanan, don't open the door." Unfortunately, the door opened. Entering was Uncle Zhong, the judge, covered in snow. "Today, I'm here to handle the divorce proceedings for you two." He took out the photocopied civil mediation document from his pocket, then slowly turned his gaze to Liao Jie. "Just now, when I was outside, I seemed to hear you say something like, 'If you don't pay, you can't leave.' Is this extortion or a threat?" His eyes were scrutinizing, and Liao Jie's lips turned pale before he quickly shook his head and let go of me. "Nothing of the sort, Your Honor." Only when Uncle Zhong took out the papers did he finally believe it, looking at me slowly with an incredulous gaze. "Shu Lily, are you really serious about divorcing me?" Judge Zhong let out a cold laugh and motioned for us to sit down. "I've already found out everything. Neither of your workplaces is very familiar with your family situations, but currently, the assessments of your characters are, the price is quite reasonable. Your neighbors did say that Wang Yanan was indeed your first love, and it's absolutely true that you brought her back. Because of her and her child, you and Shu Lily have argued repeatedly, and your relationship has indeed broken down. I've also been to Xiao Hao's school, the hospital where Wang Yanan had her surgery." Liao Jie's head sank lower and lower with these words, until he finally interrupted Judge Zhong. Judge Zhong stared at him and asked, "Liao Jie, is it true that you and your wife Shu Lily have an irreparable breakdown in your relationship? Is it true that during your marriage, you fell in love with your first love and brought her home?" The room was very quiet, with only the howling cold wind outside. Judge Zhong's voice was authoritative. Liao Jie reluctantly glanced at me and finally had no choice but to nod in admission. There was indeed a dispute, but it was all due to a moment of foolishness on my part. Judge Zhong shook his head. Liao Jie clenched his teeth, picked up the pen, and signed his name on the mediation agreement. After signing, I held the divorce agreement in my hands, unable to process it for a long time. Am I really divorced? Overwhelmed with joy, I couldn't help but smile, then turned to look at Liao Jie. It seemed like my smile had wounded him. The entire afternoon that followed, Judge Zhong stayed in the house helping us divide the marital property equally, from large items like wardrobes, tables, and chairs to small things like pots, pans, and dishes. Everything was split right down the middle. Liao Jie leaned against the doorframe of our room, looking as if he could barely stand, his whole demeanor clearly unwell. Outside, the sky began to darken, and the streetlights flickered on, casting a warm golden glow over the world beyond. I was so excited that I paid a man to help me tie all the sorted furniture onto the ox cart. I planned to move all my belongings back to the nursery tonight. Grandma was still waiting for me to come home. Judge Jong had also returned. With everything still in disarray, as the only judge, he had to run around personally verifying facts for various disputes. Lily. Liao Jie called out to me just as I was about to leave. I turned back, and he suddenly seemed a bit tongue-tied. Dinner's ready inside. Maybe you could eat with us before heading back. Great. He pointed to the dining table behind him, where Wang Yanan and her son were seated. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if I had returned to my past life. Every time I drove Liao Jie to their exclusive little villa for the three of them, he would always call me in to have dinner together. Back then, I would look past his shoulder at the mother and son, their faces wearing identical expressions of wariness and resistance. Now, having lived a second life, I don't even need to look to know what expressions they're wearing. Ridiculous. Fighting over just one man. Do they really think he's some kind of treasure? Just like countless times in my previous life, I rejected Liao Jie. No need. Grandma is waiting for me to come home for dinner. Then, the snow outside is so heavy. Why don't you stay overnight? He stammered his question, and when I turned to give him a cold glance, it was like pouring a bucket of icy water over him. He immediately fell silent. Liao Jie came to his senses. We were already divorced. That evening, after having dinner with Grandma, I moved all the furniture down overnight. We worked until the early hours of the morning, then pulled out a quilt, laid down 2 wooden planks, and made do with sleeping like that, before bed. Grandma stroked my head and sighed with emotion. My dear Lily has grown up. Grandma is truly pleased. Whatever my dear Lily does, Grandma will support you and be with you. The next day, Grandma accompanied me as we trudged through knee-deep snow to ask her classmate working at the Municipal Bureau for saplings. That winter, Grandma and I spent every single day together in the greenhouse. Many small seedlings were moved inside, seeds were sown, and some were prepared for cuttings. During this time, Liao Jie came by once, riding the 28-inch bicycle I had been nagging about not buying for over 2 years. On the bicycle's rear seat sat Wang Yanan and her son. They stood on the high ridge of the field, while my grandmother and I stepped out of the greenhouse, squinting at them in the snow. Liao Jie stood there without saying a word, staring at us like a block of wood seething with resentment. In contrast, Wang Yanan and her son were laughing and playing nearby. When they got tired, they stood beside Liao Jie, watching me and Grandma. The silver bracelet on Wang Yanan's wrist still gleamed, even more glaring against the snow. The thought of her wearing something I once wore made me sick. Grandma saw through my thoughts and scolded at the top of her voice. What are you flaunting that shabby bracelet for? This old lady has seen all kinds of fine treasures and jade. How unlucky. Liao Jie suddenly woke up and glanced back at Wang Yanan. Later, they left. The cold wind howled for several months, and Grandma and I persevered through it all. Finally, as spring arrived, the seeds sprouted, and the cuttings began to grow green leaves. Before this, Grandma and I had already been tending to dozens of pots of winter jasmine and red azaleas in the neighboring shed, their plump buds ready to burst into full bloom. The classmate from the Municipal Bureau proactively reached out to us, saying the city has a section of road that will use winter jasmine and azaleas, and ours happened to be just in time. Hey, my grandma and I were overjoyed. That day, my classmate brought people to pick up our flowers, and we happily helped carry them all morning. This is our first business deal, and the earnings far exceed several months of my salary. Grandma held my hand and instructed, "This money isn't for food and drinks. We're going to buy flower seedlings." I nodded, stuffed the money into my pocket, and as I looked up, I spotted Liao Jie on the distant field ridge. This time, he was riding a bicycle, without Wang Yanan and her child by his side. He took the initiative to come down and strike up a conversation with me. I've already asked Yanan to take off the bracelet," he said dryly. Even though we were once married for 2 years, he was uncharacteristically nervous facing me. Seeing him try to shove the bracelet into my hands, I quickly stepped back. "No. I find it disgusting," I said disdainfully, finally venting the resentment in my heart. "Don't worry, I had someone clean it. The bracelet is spotless, or I could buy you a new bracelet." He eagerly tried to convince me. Lily, she was the one who wanted to wear the bracelet. I didn't even notice. I smiled slightly. Then how did she know the bracelet was under my pillow? Did she search the bed or roll over it? Liao Jie's face turned awkward, and he fell silent. I gave him a disdainful glance and said slowly, "No need to buy me a silver bracelet, because now I can afford a gold one myself." Liao Jie seemed quite disheartened, and for a long time afterward, he didn't appear by the field ridge again. Time passed quickly. In the first year, my grandmother and I broke even. In the second year, we leased another plot of land in the suburbs. It became our second nursery. At the same time, most of the city's landscaping needs were supplied by our two nurseries. My grandmother and I couldn't handle everything by ourselves, so we hired 4 or 5 people to help. In the third year, I bought a small Western-style house in the city for my grandmother. She was getting older, and her health wasn't as good as it had been in previous years. But my grandmother wasn't happy about it and even threatened to hit me with her cane. She said, "Don't dislike Grandma for being old. Grandma can accompany good Lily in doing anything." I choked up and nodded vigorously, never again saying anything about letting Grandma rest by herself. I heard that Liao Jie was laid off by the power plant that year, so he went to the chemical plant where I used to work. Every weekend after work, he would ride his 28-inch bicycle to the suburban nursery to see me. He still stood far away on that field ridge. The trees in the nursery had grown taller than me, and I didn't want to see him, so I deliberately walked bent over, hiding among the trees. Thus, Liao Jie stood there frowning until dusk, then lowered his head and went back. The fourth year, this year, was 1999. The provincial city's World Horticultural Expo was finally about to open. I've been preparing for this exhibition for 3 years, and at this moment, I'm filled with nothing but excitement. The day before I bought clothes for Grandma and planned to go to the provincial capital, Liao Jie found me. At that time, Grandma and I were living in a small Western-style house. I don't know how he found us, but he just stood outside the yard without saying a word. Faintly, there were a few coughs. I walked over and asked him what was the matter, and he actually started crying. "Lily, it's been 3 years since the divorce. Do you still hate me?" Liao Jie's voice wasn't as strong as it used to be, and he seemed to have shrunk a little in stature. He was still wearing the blue work uniform from the fertilizer factory, but his face was clean, with a few water droplets on it. He must have washed up specifically to see me. I washed my face on the way. I didn't answer him because there was no need. Now I feel neither hate nor love for him. He is like air to me, stirring no ripples in my heart. Seeing that I didn't respond, he covered his mouth and coughed again, then opened his hand, only to reveal traces of blood. "Lily, just like you, I've been in the decomposition plant for too long and developed pneumonia. Has your pneumonia gotten better?" he asked softly. I replied, "It's been healed for a long time. In the second year of earning money, Grandma took me to the hospital and got it treated." Liao Jie nodded, then turned and patted his 28-inch bicycle. "Lily, I just realized how sharp the gravel is on the road from the fertilizer factory to home. It really hurts to walk on. No wonder, during those 2 years we were married, you kept insisting I buy a bicycle. After finally saving up some money, it all went to my illness. Me, Boa, I'm sorry, Lily. Back then, I said your background wasn't good. Those words hurt you. Actually, it wasn't that I looked down on you, but rather I felt inferior. You had a higher education, were clever. And now you even have a good business sense, making money. Actually, when I married you before, it wasn't entirely out of spite. I really did like you." Seeing that I wasn't speaking, he coughed and reached through the railing to touch me. "Lily, are you listening?" My thoughts had already drifted to tomorrow's expo, and I just nodded perfunctorily. "I drove Wang Yanan and her son away. After taking them to see you, I scolded her harshly. At that time, I heard Grandma's words. And then I saw your expression. I felt terrible, and suddenly, I started to dislike Wang Yanan. He spoke so tenderly, yet I suddenly let out a laugh." Liao Jie froze for a moment, and I met his gaze. "What's the point of saying all this now? Who are you putting on this sentimental act for?" Liao Jie, at your core, you're just a greedy person. You actually know everything in your heart. You know my grievances and concerns, you know Wang Yanan's tactics, but you're just wallowing in it. Because no matter how we fight, you're always the one who benefits. But now, the balance between us has been broken. With only Wang Yanan by your side, you're picking which of us is better. Only when people lose something does their pig-headed brain start working. But so what? I glanced at him indifferently. Someone like you deserves to live in regret forever. Liao Jie, go live your miserable life and stop messing with mine. That night, Liao Jie crouched under the fence for a long time. It wasn't until the early hours of the next morning, when it was time to go to work at the processing plant, that he finally pushed his bicycle away. Meanwhile, I had already enjoyed a good night's sleep, put on makeup, changed into the clothes I bought with my grandmother, and boarded the train to the provincial capital with her. The expo began, and I was fully confident. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video. Open.